Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Don't you understand, George? It's because you were not born.
Film church.
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
I don't know. I mean, it's not like any of us could have done anything to stop it. So you just have to take it, don't you? You know, you can't regret because you don't have any say in it. That's just what life's like. Just, you know, you roll with the punches.
Hello, and welcome to Film Church Radio, the podcast that treats cinema as a religion. It's Sunday. I'm Lewis.
And I'm Lewis.
And we are here to talk about movies. Each week, Brandon and I alternate picking a film for us both to watch and discuss. Today, I picked the film The Eternal Daughter from 2022, the final part in the Souvenir trilogy, directed by Joanna Hogg. Brandon and I both loved the first two parts of this incredible trilogy, and we discussed them on episode 14 and 15 of this very show. So if you are wanting to go back and refresh your memory before listening to this episode, go do it. I've just told you, it's 14 and 15. What are you waiting for? This film, however, stars Tilda Swinton and Tilda Swinton in a dual performance, which I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot about. If you want to know what we're going to be watching next week, so you can get a head start, watch the film, and then come back and listen to us talk about it, wait till the end of the show. Hold your horses. Brandon will be telling us at the end when we've wrapped everything up. I'm excited to know what he's picked. But before we get into the film and other films that we have watched, we'd like to say thank you to everyone who has been listening to the podcast and sending their love for the show. If you really want to help us out, here's what you got to do, kids. Go to Spotify, like us, listen to us, subscribe to us, all that good stuff over there. Because as mentioned last week, we're now being hosted by Spotify, and it helps grow the show, puts it in other people's feeds, and then has a chance for us to make a little bit of money off it in the future so that we can do some bigger and better stuff for y'all. That's the plan. So if you can, Spotify is the place to go. If not, hey, we're everywhere. We're on every podcast platform. We're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, all at Film Church Radio. So you can go and check us all out. Like, subscribe, love it, heart it, thumbs up, whatever. They're all different. They're all the same. It all helps us get out there. We'd really appreciate it. We have all of our episodes back streaming as well. So if you do want to go and listen to 14 and 15, they're there. They're out there in the universe. You can do it. We'd love for you to check it all out. But before we discuss the main film, The Eternal Daughter from 2022, as a reminder, we're going to get to our hymns section. This is new and improved, where we're going to, the only thing that's improved is the name. But we're going to sing the praises of other films that we've watched this past week. So Brandon, what have you been watching this past week? What films do you want to sing the praises of?
Praises is
Yeah, I saw the first one on the list.
Praises is a strong word.
Well, second episode in and we've hit a roadblock. Maybe this doesn't work.
I mean, I can still sing praises of films that are a low rating.
Yeah.
In my Letterboxd ratings. But I watched a few films, Lewis.
Cool.
One being F9, The Fast Saga, aka Fine, aka The Fast and the Furious 9.
Yeah.
I also I rated it 1.5 stars. Okay.
Yeah.
I know people love these movies. There's some of these movies that I love as well. I mean, F5 is a fucking blast. I like that movie a lot. F9, I'll watch it again at some point. I'm late. I mean, it came out a couple of years ago. I'm late to it. And I fell asleep in parts of it. I'll admit,
Yeah.
I couldn't devote my whole attention to it. I tried to wake up in the parts with dialogue so I could pay attention to the story. I told that to my brother-in-law, and he was like, "What?" He's like, "That's backwards. You should have woken up for the action scenes.
Yeah.
Like, that's what those movies are for." I was like, "Yeah, I guess that's true."
Yeah.
It's a very bizarre movie. It's like I mean, it's the 9th movie, obviously, and like the story factor is so bizarre because it's like you get all the way to the 9th movie and there's like, oh, here's this character that means the world to our main characters, but you've never heard of them before and they haven't been in any of the other movies. That part of it is like very much a stretch. I mean, it's Fast and the Furious. All of it is a stretch.
Yeah.
But they're still fun, It's good entertainment for the most part, but I do need to watch it again just to kind of give it a real chance.
Yeah.
And I will watch number 10 as well, I'm into these movies for the most part, but it's starting to wear on me a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I haven't done a watch of them. I think I've seen the first 3, maybe 4. So before they start getting crazy, and then I saw Hobbs and Shaw when it was in cinema. So
oh wow,
yeah,
that's a weird jump.
Yeah, but hey, I don't really have too much interest in it. I feel like I know what it's about. So
yeah,
but
I feel like Fast 5 is the sweet spot because it's like, okay, let's start getting a little crazier, but also it's still a little more grounded.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but that's just me. And then I watched The Newsies, the musical from 90-something, early 90s with Christian Bale. Been talking about musicals lately with my sister and then my girlfriend, Sarah. And it was one that my sister had watched when she was younger, and I had missed it somehow. And it was pretty good. I gave it 3. It's like, for me, musicals, I do like musicals, but it's like if I didn't grow up watching them, it's hard for me to like really like a new musical.
Yeah.
I did really like La La Land. I was into that, but I don't know. It's just like, it was good. It was a decent musical, but I feel like if I had watched it a few times as a kid, I would have really loved it now.
Yeah.
And Christian Bale's good in it. He's really young. It's also got Robert Duvall in it and Bill Pullman.
That's cool.
They're all great. So yeah, I mean, I might watch it again at some point. I don't know. It's like, I feel like if I'm going to go back and watch another musical, it'll be one that I grew up watching.
Yeah.
That I'm, that I can just like, I don't know. It's fun to watch a musical that you've seen a bunch of times.
Yeah,
it's
like
a party.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting close to rewatching Oliver again. I feel like we talked about this a little bit when you watched Annie, and just like we seem to just have that on VHS for some reason when I was a kid. So I watched it like all the time.
I love Annie.
Yeah, I know. And like Oliver,
I've got it on VHS and Blu-ray.
Here we go. Flexing those muscles. Yeah, I feel like I'm going to probably watch Oliver at some point again soon.
Yeah.
I love musicals.
I feel like I've seen it at least once, but I might have to rewatch that one. But yeah, then I watched Nightmare Cinema from 2018. I think it was on Tubi or something.
Yeah.
I only gave it 2 stars, but if you're a horror fan, just wait a second, because there is a lot here to love. It is an ensemble movie. It is what do you call it? Like creep show. It's like
like vignettes and
vignettes. Yeah. There's another word for it.
Episodic.
Something like
that. Is that episodic? I don't know.
There is a word, I can't think of it. But it it's got like 5 different directors directing different segments. The concept is really cool because it's different people go into this movie theater and then they're shown their deepest fears.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
like there's a projectionist that's like a part of the whole overarching story. And the projectionist is Mickey Rourke. And you know, at first when the movie started, I thought this was like, because you don't see Mickey Rourke until a little while into the movie. So when it, you know, the first like 20 or so minutes, I really thought this was like a $10,000 low budget movie.
Yeah.
Based on what I was watching. Come to find out, this was, I actually don't know what the budget was, but the fact that Mickey Rourke is in it and finding out that this film, like some of the directors are pretty big horror directors, and this film was released in cinemas in 2018. So those factors alone, I'm like, okay, this had to be a couple of $1 million.
Yeah.
Maybe $1 million at the least. But still, I was like, man, there's still something missing. Like sometimes, I mean, there's a reason that a lot of people feel like these movies don't work, and I think it's because there's not an overall vision to kind of hold it all together. Plus, like, if this movie was made in the 80s, it would probably be amazing. Like, if it was shot on film and had that look, like, I mean, Creepshow, I like Creepshow a lot, but, like, the aesthetic goes a long way
it does.
with those movies. Yeah. And so to have, like, this kind of cleaner, pristine version, which there's a lot of cool stuff in it. There's a lot of cool shots. There's a lot of cool filmmaking stuff. And that stuff is really cool, but you know, it's still a story. Like, the story still has to work for me.
Yeah.
And I felt like, you know, the stories weren't working for me. But there is a lot of love out there for this movie, especially amongst horror fans. So if you're a horror fan and you love Nightmare Cinema, please send me a message on one of the Film Church radio channels and tell me what you love about this movie and convince me to rewatch it. I need a reason to rewatch it. And the poster is freaking cool. It's got like the devil on it, and he's got like some film in his hand.
Yeah.
It's kind of badass. But yeah, so that was Nightmare Cinema. And then I watched The Wizard of Loneliness.
It sounds like a Tenacious D song.
It kind of does, yeah. Does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah, I've heard it's the Wizard of Loneliness. It's an insult in a film, right? Someone's like, "You're the Wizard of Loneliness." It's Nathan for You.
Yeah, it's in Nathan for You. Yeah, and it's one of the episodes of Nathan for You, and it's like the guy who
the private eye. Yeah,
it's the private eye, and it's like one of the second times that he brings him back or whatever, and he's like making fun of Nathan. He's like, "You're like the Wizard of Loneliness," and it's such a bizarre insult that like Sarah and I kind of say that to each other sometimes just because it's so funny. And then we were just like, you know, browsing films on Prime, I think, and The Wizard of Loneliness was there. I was like, oh my God, it's a movie from the 80s. We have to watch it. So I put it on, and it's pretty great, honestly. Like,
wow, that's awesome.
I only gave it 3 stars, but you know, I might actually revisit this movie. Who is in it?
I want you to just remember that sentiment when we get to the films that I've watched.
Okay. It's got Lee Thompson in it.
Yeah.
Or Leah. Is it Leah Thompson? She plays the mom in the Back to the Future trilogy.
Okay.
She's in it. I'm trying to find the right actor. The way that Letterboxd lays this out is not... It's not as easy to see who the actor is. But Dylan Baker is also in it, and he plays Dr. Connors in Spider-Man 2 and 3.
Yeah.
He's also in it. But yeah, it's like about this kid whose mother dies in the beginning, and he's kind of like an adult kid. You know, he's like 10, but he like acts like an adult. He's like, I'm in no mood to talk to anyone right now. That's like one of his lines. And you can kind of immediately see why this guy called Nathan Fielder that in the show, because it's like, oh, he's kind of like this, you know, just like bizarre child. And the way that it's shot, I really like the way that it's shot. It's like 4:3, you know, it's like the letterboxed square. But like every image looks like an Instagram photo.
That's cool. Yeah.
And this is from the 80s. It's very atmospheric. Like, I'm pretty sure this was a TV movie, you know, based on my experience of watching it and the fact that I've never heard of this before. But it was like the filmmaking part of it was done really well, and the story was good. I might actually revisit this movie. It's just like a weird, I don't know. There's just so many movies like this that I feel like got lost to the ether. Yeah. It just like, you know, I don't know. It's like, how did they get the budget for this and market it and, you know, just like have stuff to put out there? I mean, I guess it's still done today. Yeah. But I think I appreciate movies, like older movies like this more. You know, again, for the same reason that I was talking about Nightmare Cinema, just like that it's shot on film and it looks more like a movie to me than like a newer low budget movie, I guess, these days. I don't know. Yeah. It's worth a watch for sure.
Okay, cool.
But anyway, so after that, we watched Tetris, the new Apple TV Plus movie. What's the actor's name?
Taron Egerton.
Yes, Taron Egerton, however you say it. Who is amazing. I mean, he's such a good actor. And it's weird because it's like the whole movie is really, I mean, yeah, it's the 80s. Yeah, it's about like cool vintage video games. But it's really at the core of it, it's just like a movie about a business transaction. Yeah. But it's done really, really well. It's like, me and Jason Woods were actually talking about this the other day. It was like, it's so crazy that that filmmakers can make business look so exciting. Yeah. But yeah, it's a really great watch. It was fun.
That's awesome.
And that's it. I gave it 4 out of 5. That good.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, I've been watching some stuff as well. I watched Rye Lane from 2023, nice. Directed by Rain Allen Miller. It is a British comedy, rom-com, really, which we haven't seen a lot of recently, I don't think, like a proper good rom-com. And it's like a mashup between Notting Hill and Before Sunset.
Okay.
So...
Oh, yeah, I think I did see the trailer for this. It looked really good.
Yeah, it is superb. I had a really good time with it. It's kind of like throughout a full day of these two characters kind of meeting and getting to know each other. And it's funny. It's just full of energy, and like the camera work is so edgy and different and new, and you know it's just like an hour and a half of just fun, you know. And I don't feel like we get that enough in cinema at the moment.
Yeah,
where you can just
it's always about something deep or something like political or like
exactly, and it's just really, really fun, which is all I can say. There's like there's really good jokes in there. There's, you know, it never feels, because I was a bit hesitant, especially with it being like throughout a whole day. I was like, there's going to be parts where it starts to like suffer, and you know, it's kind of reaching a little dramatically to get to the next point, but it never really feels like that. It just feels like two people like hanging out all day, and we're with them.
Nice,
great performances from the two lead actors. And yeah, it's just really exciting. I mean, I think the British cinema as a whole is just, in the last year especially, has put out some really, really great things. Yeah. So I am loving watching it. So, and it's on Hulu. It's streaming for free.
Oh,
if
sweet.
You're a Hulu subscriber.
I will check it out very soon then.
Yeah, go and do it. It's a lot of fun. I want to watch it again soon because it's great. And then I watched Blue Steel, the Catherine Bigelow film, starring oh my gosh, Jamie Lee Curtis, who we love.
Yes.
So this had been on like my to watch list since we watched Point Break.
Yeah, I was wondering, because like when we watched Point Break, it was like, man, Catherine Bigelow.
Yeah.
Why are people not talking about her more?
Yeah. And so I'd added it to my watch list, and then I think it was like a Tuesday, I just got notified like, hey, Blue Steel's now on Prime. And I was like, oh, sweet. I'd forgotten about that. So I like instantly put it on, watched it all the way through. And it's a really fun, I'm saying that word a lot at the moment. It's a really entertaining, like 80s, 90s action movie with a female lead. And I think it's saying a lot about like the fetishism of weapons and guns, which is still very relevant to nowadays. It's got like a really great bad guy. It's kind of, it reminded me of, I know, she was married to James Cameron and stuff. So it reminded me a lot of like the Terminator films in certain aspects. But
Catherine Bigelow was?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's really great if you're looking for just like a fun kind of shoot 'em up like cop thriller.
Well, it's an action movie. It's entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Kind of where it's going to go in the end. But there's some really fun like twists and turns along the way and some great set pieces. So, yeah, Blue Steel. I gave it 3.5 out of 5.
Nice.
And the last film I'm going to talk about is a film that I feel I need to explain myself a little bit to you.
Okay.
So, here we go. So I finally watched Clerks 3.
Yay!
Yeah, I did it. And I gave it 3 out of 5. And I know that you really, really loved it. So I'm gonna, I'm not gonna like, I don't know. I didn't hate it, and I really enjoyed it. I was very nervous about going into this film after Jay and Silent Bob reboot because I really didn't like it. Yeah, I didn't think it was that funny. I'm not a huge fan of Jay and Silent Bob anyway.
Yeah. Like, you love Clerks.
Yeah. I love Chasing Amy.
You like Kevin Smith.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a bit worried now that that maybe he was a little out of ideas.
Yeah.
After Jay and Silent Bob reboot. So I've been a bit trepidatious about watching Clerks 3. But eventually I was like, here we go. I'm going to watch it. I want to see what it's like. My big positives. I love where he goes with the characters. Yeah. I just love it. I think that the way that this film ends feels perfect. Yeah.
It's not same old. He's like, where do they go? Where do they go?
Exactly. And I think that that's exactly where my kind of not annoyance, but like when it lost me a little bit was when the filmmaking started in the film. And it was a lot of like, okay, we know Kevin Smith and we know he had a heart attack. We know that kind of rejuvenated his career a little bit in terms of what he wanted to do. There were so many in-jokes about like the original making of Clerks that I was like, okay, it's like a documentary, but acted out. That's how it's kind of starting to feel. But then that final third, I was like, okay, this is actually saying something quite beautiful. Yeah. I don't think that I think there's too much going on to stick it all. That's my only thing. I think, I know that we need like a structure to get to these points, but the making a film in the quick stop just didn't feel like it for me. Mm-hmm. And I don't know whether that's just because I've been such a fan of Clerks that it feels weird watching them be so self-referenced all the time. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. When is the last time that you watched Clerks 1, and when is the last time you watched Clerks 2?
It's been a while.
Yeah. All right. So, here's what you should do.
Okay.
The next time you have several hours in your day, which might be a while, watch all three back to back.
Okay.
And you will have a completely different experience.
Yeah.
Because the weird thing is, it's like, I don't know. It's like Kevin, he likes to like, there's a thread in all of his movies. You can watch, all of his movies kind of back to back, and there's a thread through all of them. But specifically with the Clerks movies, he's doing something different. He's doing like a different thread where all the other movies he made don't really matter.
Yeah.
In consideration of those three.
Yeah.
Because they're about Dante and Randall.
Yeah.
And yeah, Jay and Silent Bob are there and like other characters there, but like it's about Dante and Randall.
Yeah.
And their friendship and all that stuff. So and that's what I did. I watched Clerks 1 and 2 and then went and saw Clerks 3 in the cinema. And obviously that heightened my experience as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird because some of the like he brings back people in all of his movies, and sometimes, like Ben Affleck or Jason Lee, like he brings them back in a bunch of his different movies, and sometimes they're playing different characters. They're not always the same character.
Yeah.
So like his whole universe, you really have to be a deep fan to keep track of which character is which.
Yeah.
But yeah, so specifically with the Clerks movies, I think it's best to watch them in order without bringing in all the other knowledge and universe that of him, of Kevin Smith, and like, you just kind of have to like enjoy the Clerks movies as a trilogy.
Yeah, and I think that they are heightened above kind of the other stuff, I don't know. There's a lot of really good stuff in his filmography, but there's also a lot of stuff that I don't care for. And I think that's the problem, is that for me, it just kind of flip-flops too much in terms of like my personal taste, Yeah. But I will say that after Jay and Silent Bob reboot, I was not excited for what was coming next, but now I am.
Yeah.
Because I know that if he carries on in this vein, if, the studio give him the space and time and money to do what he, how he wants to do it, then it's going to be good. We know Kevin Smith, we know he's got a big heart. So like lean into that. Let's have more of it. I don't want it to sound like I didn't like it, because I did like it. There was just a few issues that I had with it. I felt that, not to get really into it again, but some of the editing felt a little lax. You could tell that characters were just kind of saying their line and then it would cut and a character would say their line. It didn't feel like it was too connected. But again, these are just like little things that kind of, that you notice. But yeah, it's good.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, and that is all the films that I have watched this week. So now it's time to move on to our main sermon. The Eternal Daughter from 2022. The letterbox summary says an exquisite ghost story. An artist and her elderly mother confront long-buried secrets when they return to a former family home, now a hotel haunted by its mysterious past. The Souvenir Part 3. But not.
Yeah.
So I'd seen this film before. I'd watched it as soon as it came available to rent. Being a huge fan of the last two, as I know you are.
Yeah.
And really, been looking forward to an excuse to talk about it with you. So What were your initial impressions of The Eternal Daughter?
Yeah, man. I mean, obviously I was hyped for this movie.
Yeah.
You know, the Souvenir 1 and 2 I liked a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoyed those movies a lot. And when you told me that this movie was, I mean, when I found out from you that this movie existed, and by the time that you had found out and told me about it, it was already done. Like the movie was out.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't out. It was like at festivals and stuff, but it was done. And it was like, holy shit, like that was fast. And where did this come from? And also, what is it? Like it's a movie about the same character, and she's older, and it's like a ghost story about her mother, and what you know, it just seems so different, you know. But it was like Souvenir 1 and 2 were so good, it was like you know, I was on board no matter what, you know. Joanna Hogg is incredible. So when the movie, you know, I didn't know what to expect exactly, but I figured it would be good. And you know, within the first like 10 minutes or so, it took me a little bit to settle into it, because I didn't, you know, it's a separate movie. Yeah, it's about the same characters, but it's a separate movie completely. You don't really need to see Souvenir 1 and 2 to watch this.
No.
And it also took me a little bit to settle into it, because Tilda Swinton is playing two characters.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of built-in, I don't want to say bias, but like the way that my brain associates people playing two characters in the same movie, or more than one character in the same movie, is always related to comedy. Always.
Yeah.
I can't think of another movie besides The Eternal Daughter where it's taken seriously.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So, you know, it took me a minute to like just not
be ready for the punchline.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, you know,
yeah.
And I was kind of paying attention to the filmmaking too much in the beginning, like, oh, they're not in the same shot. Oh, look, how did they do that? Oh, you know. But before I knew it, I completely forgot. Before I knew it, it was like, yeah, it was totally different. Plus, it was like, I mean, Tilda Swinton's performance as Julie is so good.
Yeah.
It's almost too good the first time you watch it, because I mean she's one of the greatest actresses alive today, I would say. Like it's so good that like when you first watch it after watching Souvenir 1 and 2, you're like, man, this is a great impression. You know, but you know, I kind of just so it took, you know, it took a good 10 to 20 minutes before those kind of like thoughts kind of washed away.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking about the movie anymore. I was just watching it. And yeah, I had so many different thoughts watching it the first time. I watched it twice so far, but the first time it was like, I don't know. It almost like it's almost like after those kind of thoughts went away, I just started to float through the movie.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, it was over.
Yeah.
And it felt like I had watched a short film that somehow was an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
The hotel clerk character, what's the actress's name?
Carly Sophia Davis.
Yeah, man, like, she did such a good job of being a unlikable hotel clerk.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty incredible. And obviously we're going to get into spoilers.
Yeah.
But once it got to the scene where she sings her mother happy birthday and brings her the cake and blows out the candle, the weight that I felt in that cut was incredible. Like, it was like the whole entire movie changes at that moment, because you realize that she's lost her mother and you don't have any sense of time anymore. You start rethinking the entire film. You're like, was she gone the whole time? Did she die while she was there? Are we seeing different periods that she visited this hotel? And I think, well, first of all, Joanna Hogg is one of the most interesting filmmakers alive today. Like, her filmmaking process, I don't know anyone else that works like her. And there might be other people out there, but it is so interesting. And we'll get into that in a minute. But she captures something here that I don't think I've ever quite seen expressed in a film before. This kind of view on death and motherhood and being a daughter. And obviously, like, you know, I'm not a daughter, I'm a son, but like, there is and maybe it's because there's so many more male filmmakers that get chances to make films, that there's not more films like this. Or maybe it's just me that hasn't like explored other films enough, or films by female directors. But she captures something here that I've just never seen expressed like this before. And it really reminded me, like, there's like the shots of her mother when she looks really old, and she's laying in bed and she like there's hints to it throughout the movie where she's holding her hand, but then towards the end you actually get the shots of her laying in bed and she looks really old, and the makeup is absolutely freaking amazing. I don't understand how people do that. Like, how do they make it look so real?
I thought similar when we see shots of her hands as Rosalind, because the hands are so, they just look like an old person's, and it's not something that you can. I didn't think you could fake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
absolutely incredible. But like, it reminded me of when I was like 5 years old. It was actually my 5th birthday, and my great grandmother was very old, and she was staying with my grandmother, and we had my birthday party at my grandmother's house. So she was staying with my grandmother, but she just stayed in bed all the time. And so when it came time for me to like open my presents, we like went in her bedroom and opened them in there so she could like be a part of it. And it just reminded me of that. It just reminded me of like, I don't know, because I just like, obviously it's a completely different experience, and was a completely different experience for my grandmother who was taking care of her mother. But it just felt so true to something real, like this movie, you know? And I think that's one of the incredible things that Joanna Hogg has been able to do so well with all 3 of these films, is capture something beyond art. You know, she's creating something that's more of a literal like journal. You know, it's like when you go, like, it's like finding an old relative's journals and reading them and being like, oh, this is crazy, and like I feel like I understand them more. It's like it's not a movie, it's not art, it's like a journal.
Yeah,
you know, it captured something actually real. You know, but somehow still is a film. It's somehow not a documentary. it somehow still is art. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, man. It's so interesting.
It is. Yeah, it's a phenomenal piece of work. I think it's an absolute genius stroke to change it to this gothic kind of ghost story, because when that bait and switch does happen, when the rug's pulled from under your feet, you totally buy it because of the atmosphere that's been created throughout the whole film. It doesn't feel like it's unearned, you know, and it fits within the story. But there's also those themes that, like you said, are still running through the whole trilogy. There's the themes of loss, themes of doing somebody justice, whether, you know, they would, what would they think of your portrayal of them if they had lived? You know, the Souvenir Part 2 was all about doing justice to somebody's memory, and did you really know them, you know? And this is kind of, it's for someone that you knew so well, how do you do them justice? You know, how do you make sure that you get that across, that they're not, you know, and make sure that it's still the person that you were close to. The first time I watched it, like, all these feelings kind of blew over me. The second time, there was a lot of things that I was looking for. The first was, like, whether it was obvious that the Rosalind wasn't there the whole time. Because I don't know about you, but the first time I saw it, when I had no idea.
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming at all.
I really didn't either, honestly.
So when it happens, I was like, oh my God, this is incredible.
Well, it also, like, is not to interrupt you, but like it just changed your whole perspective. Even the point of, like, the hotel clerk, it was like, oh, was she being rude the whole time, or was it that Joanna, or not Joanna, but Julie, was being so weird about everything?
Yeah, because when you watch it, the second time, knowing, you're like, okay, this, you know, it is
maybe this
weird.
is like her fifth time coming back without her mother to try to recreate it or whatever.
Yeah, I think there's a few clues in there as to kind of like when this is taking place and what's happening. I think when she arrives and she talks about the room that she's booked, and they say, oh, it's a ground floor with wheelchair access, and she's like, no, it's like the first floor. I think that this was booked before her mother passed away, to bring her mother, who was obviously like wheelchair bound at the time, up to like this old house. So I think that switch, like, I think that it was booked as a ground floor room with a wheelchair access. And then this switch, she's like, that isn't, you know, it's kind of all a little bit in Julie's head. My other theory is that Bill is also dead. The groundskeeper. Because Bill is the only person that Rosalind has a conversation with that isn't Julie.
Right, yeah.
And there's a whole scene where they're talking together, Julie and Bill, and he says something about, like, I lost my wife, which he never says his wife died, I don't think, just that he lost her. So, you know, it could be the other way. And that he kind of stays around the house. And, like, he's like, at night, like, I play her the flute at night because she never heard it in real life. Or something like that. There's all these, like, little things. And at the end, like, nobody really seems to pay attention to him when he, like, shows her out.
Yeah.
So I think that Bill is dead. I think, you know, obviously Rosalind, and I think that it's, you know, on the outside, it's just Julie and the hotel receptionist in the house.
Yeah.
For the most time.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, I think I trust Joanna Hogg now with my life. I think that I was so skeptical going in, just thinking, like, the Souvenir Part 1 and 2 are so perfect. I don't know that you need this, especially with such a change in genre, change in theme, you know, not having Tilda Swinton play Julie, which I do want anyone who's listening, if you can think of another example where a real life mother and daughter have played, or father and son have played the younger version and older version of a character, please let me know. Because I think that this is, I don't think I've seen this that much at all. But yeah, I think that I was a bit skeptical, but
well, it also it add like the fact that she plays both characters adds a layer to the philosophical aspect of it, of like, of like, are we just copies of our parents?
Yeah. Because there's a lot of shots through mirrors as well.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, because she does that a lot in the Souvenir movies as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What is that all about, you think?
I think it's just like that reflection, isn't it? It's what you see on the outside, and kind of like, who are you kind of projecting out,
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you go back and watch and you know what's happened, there's a scene where I think she's just taken Louis out and she comes back up to the room, and Rosalind's in bed, and she's opening a pill box and taking her pills, and it cuts and we see Julie in the mirror, and it's shot through the mirror, and she's kind of just sitting there on the bed. And the first time you watch it, you think she's just watching her kind of get ready for sleep, but the second time it's so sad. It's just like she's just like looking at the space that her mother used to be in,
Yeah.
And it does change on that second watch, from the first where you're like, what's going on? It's not creepy enough to be like a ghost story, and it's not like, I don't know where it's going narratively, But then when you know what's happening the second time around, it feels even more removed from a ghost story. It's just like, it's another story about loss and grief, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
It's crazy that, this was a story that Joanna Hogg had wanted to make for years, but then kind of just put it down because she wasn't sure how to.
Yeah.
And then after making the Souvenir movies, was kind of starting to think about it again. And after the Souvenir movies, she wasn't exactly thinking that this would be the same characters from the Souvenir, but it's like when she started talking to Tilda Swinton about it, that's kind of just what it started to become. And because they had, well, I don't just think they say this in their interviews, they had such a good time seeing the Rosalind character come to life, the character of Julie's mother in the Souvenir, that it kind of made sense to just make it that character. But then when they started, really thinking about it, it was like, okay, well, Tilda Swinton was going to play Julie instead, and they were going to find an older actress to play Rosalind. And then Tilda Swinton was like, well, what if I just play both? And immediately Joanna Hogg had to start thinking about, well, one, she was like, that's a great idea. But two, how is that going to work with my filmmaking style? And her filmmaking style is one of the reasons I'm saying that she is one of the most interesting filmmakers around today, because holy crap, I don't know how she does it, and just like sticks the landing constantly. It's all improv. There's no dialogue written. She like the way they described it in their Q&A was that she creates a scaffolding basically of the story. She has like 30 pages of like a treatment kind of like ideas. But then when they shoot, it's all just open, free form, go with the flow, improv-y kind of stuff, which is really cool. And obviously the Souvenir 1 and 2 came out amazing. But with this movie, it's one actress playing these two characters, and that's the whole movie basically. There's a few other characters, but like, how do you go about coming up with scenes when your actress is constantly having to get up and change character and switch it around.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes to show the absolute brilliance of the collaboration of Tilda Swinton and Joanna Hogg. I mean, nobody else could do this.
No, I don't. No, I agree completely. I think that it just takes ultimate trust from both parties to like jump into this, and also like we know that Tilda Swinton and Joanna Hogg like, have known each other for a long time and been very close. And it takes, I think, for something that is autobiographical, again, in a way, and something that really does show Joanna Hogg's kind of inner thoughts and worries, you have to really know her to get that right in terms of the performance. Especially if it's like unscripted, you have to know how she would have interacted, like what would have, set her off, what would, she be doing or be saying at certain points. There's an absolutely beautiful scene where Rosalind is talking to Bill, and Julie overhears, and Rosalind is talking about how she'd never been a mother, but she was like, oh, I know she would have been a wonderful mother. No, she is a wonderful mother. She's looked after like me and other people. Oh my God. I can't even, like, it's just absolutely like beautiful.
Yeah.
It's such a wonderful moment, and it's not even like a big showy piece. It's kind of just like a 2-3 minute scene and then we move on. But I mean, just it's the whole thing is just full of these like really beautiful moments between mother and daughter, and also just wanting to hold on to her for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Trying not to remember her as like the bedridden, that she is in the towards the end of the film.
Yeah.
There's, I mean, it's just. The more I think about it, the more and more it feels less of a ghost story, and I feel that's just like a framing device to make it work,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's got. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing. I kept feeling. I kept getting the Shining vibes. A lot of the Shining vibes, and I know that Joanna Hogg is a fan of Kubrick. I mean, I feel like you have to be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
But I mean, also, I'm pretty sure her and Scorsese were talking about Kubrick in their interview together, and just the fact that there's like all these vibes from The Shining, and then she does the zooms too.
Yeah.
Where was I going with that?
About ghost stories.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to me that like that she as a I guess just the complete flip of filmmaking styles of like between Kubrick and Joanna Hogg. It's like Kubrick, the guy who had massive screenplays in every detail down, just incredibly meticulous, to Joanna Hogg, who doesn't have that, and that's not how she works. She's she's creating the movie is when they're shooting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just so crazy. It's so cool. It's so cool to me. Yeah, I don't know. It's awesome.
It really is. I love like it's full of memories, of her mother, and just those little touches, like the carrier bag of books that she kind of has, that she takes out of her case and kind of carries around, and obviously the pillbox that she has with her, and it's just you can just tell that these are touches that just really bring the character through that dimension. It becomes less of a character, more of a real person. Throughout. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I really felt like the film was. There's so much you can get out of it on multiple watches.
Yeah.
there's layers to it that you'll see on rewatches, and like you said, there's a lot of different clues and stuff. I feel like this movie. I feel like this movie is just gonna age really well, especially for me, because I don't know. I felt really. I mean, we're in our early 30s, so like we're much closer to the characters that are in the forefront in the Souvenir than we are to like people in their aging years, where they're thinking more about death.
Yeah.
But that's all something we have to think about at some point. We kind of all go through the different trials and hills that you have to climb in life. So I feel like this is definitely a movie that is going to be something that I kind of have to go back to in order to kind of like answer some questions, or like realize some things I have to do, and like, because like I said, it's she captured something real that I think just, it's like therapy or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it's saying a lot about how to pay respects to someone. As I mentioned before, just the fact that she's making this about her mother. She, the whole film, she's trying to start writing something about, her and her mother's relationship. But whenever she seems to, when she starts writing it, whenever she seems to talk to her mother, they seem to have like, the communication breaks down a little bit. They have an argument, or there's something in, they start talking about something that brings back a bad memory for a mother. And it's that whole thing of when you're, you try not to be biased and like not put someone on a pedestal, but it's also like, how do I show these bad qualities without, making them seem like an awful person? Like when Rosalind is talking about when I assume that she lost a baby, and then she was like, and I was horrible to him. I was horrible to your father. Like, I treated him like, dirt or whatever. And Julie's like, I'm sure he didn't, like, I'm sure he knew, that you didn't mean it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's kind of, dealing with these, issues of like, if I am going to write about this, like, how am I going to portray this? How am I going to get this across? You know? Nobody is working like Joanna Hogg at the moment. Nobody's making these films. I mean, this is as close, I think, to a perfect ending as you could get to a trilogy, in my eyes.
Yeah. I mean, this movie, and like I said, like this, it works great as a trilogy, but The Eternal Daughter is also an amazing standalone movie. Yeah, you don't really have to have the other ones. So much so that I'm like, I need this physical copy. Like, where are the physical copies of this movie?
Yeah,
I need to buy like 10 and send them to my grandmother's, my mother, and my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
I need to send it to all of them.
Yeah.
Like, because I want to know their thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, I got so much out of this movie. I can't imagine what they might get out of this movie. Because it represents a lot more than just what I'm getting out of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I really would love to know the thoughts of the women that are close to me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a film that really makes you think, and like you said, there's other layers there for, for mothers and for daughters and for women in general. There's a lot in here that I don't think that we're gonna tap into necessarily.
Yeah.
But I mean, as a piece of art, as a film, and as a piece of art, it's some of the best around.
Yeah.
I really don't think this letterbox summary does it justice, though. I don't think that this is how you should sell this film.
Yeah.
But it's definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of the hook. It's trying to get people to
Yeah.
watch it.
Yeah.
It's trying to get guys like us to watch it. But it's not. That's not exactly what it is. But I think that's what it. I think that was the intention going into it, maybe when they were trying to make it. But it obviously became what it needed to become.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that it wasn't all. There's a few kind of atmospheric like shots of like graveyards and fog rolling in, and there's the really intense sense of isolation throughout the whole thing. But I think, it's just for the setting of that, of when you realize that the mother isn't alive, it makes sense. You're like, of course, that thematically in the world of this film, that is exactly what should happen. This feels right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the characters that are portrayed. I love the class as well. I love that it's kind of slightly upper class people, and their kind of side of it as well. The conversations between the two characters are just lyrical and perfect and just so real. I mean, well, I can't talk about this film highly enough. So,
is this what England is really like? Just gray and foggy and
some
spooky.
places. Yeah. I think that the most realistic portrayal of England is in that first 10 minutes with the cab driver. It's like, I went up there with my wife and we took a photo and there's someone in the background, so I don't really go up there anymore. I'm like, okay, this feels like this is the kind of story that someone would tell you in a cab.
Yeah.
And
what do you think of those? Go ahead.
And I was going to say that the hotel receptionist, for myself, I wasn't ever sure if she was being mean or just British. Because there's that definite kind of like, she's still doing it. She's still doing what they ask, but she's not like, sure, I can do that. It's just like, I'll see.
Yeah. There's only 4 things on the menu.
Yeah. I love it when she's just like, there's a bag on the floor.
Yeah. And the way that she frames her shots, you never can tell if her mother is there or not.
Yeah.
Because you're like, and the way when she orders, when she orders food, and Rosalind is just like, I'll have what she's having, and so she just repeats the order.
Yeah.
But you're like, did she just order it once though?
I know. Yeah.
And she's repeating Julia's order.
Yeah. And I think that we get to, on the birthday night, when it all is revealed, we get to the point where it's like, okay, this charade is starting to like fall down around her a little bit. How the mother's like, oh, I'm not hungry. I'm not going to order. And Julie's like, well, if you're not going to order, I'm not going to order. And I think it just shows that she's ready to confront the fact that she's not actually there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where I was going to go with that. I made it sound like I was going to continue my thought, but I think that was it.
It's just brilliant.
It is.
These are movies, Andy asked us when we did our Shining episode. I can't remember who was actually in this episode or if he asked us after the episode was over. He asked us if there's like any films we might return to on Film Church Radio. I feel like the Souvenir trilogy, that might be one. That might be a good episode to return to in like 5 or 10 years, or I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's just rekindled my need to go back and watch the other 2 Souvenir films.
Yeah, I did rewatch the second one last night, just to kind of refresh my memory, and oh my god, it's so good, dude.
Yeah.
And I cannot get over how she made these movies. Like how the fuck did Joanna Hogg do this? Like, it just drives me crazy. Like, I geek out because I'm a filmmaker myself. I'm like, I don't know. I guess just the validation that like you can make a movie however the fuck you want to. Like
Yeah.
your process is your process. Like, and I have a sense that Joanna Hogg is such a good filmmaker because she watches so many movies.
Yeah.
I mean, she's friends with Martin Scorsese, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah.
Like, she watches a shitload of movies, and that's all you need.
Yeah.
You just need to watch a bunch of movies and understand the different languages. The process of making a movie can be whatever it needs to be.
Yeah. I am praying that I know that a lot of times she's spoken about her love of like musicals and the classic Hollywood musicals. I'm like, somebody give her millions to make a musical, please. Please. We saw like a bit of what would happen in Souvenir Part 2, where Richard Ayoade's character is directing.
Oh yeah,
that
dude.
musical.
When I watched that last night, I was like, I had that thought. I was like,
Yeah.
man, I want to see Joanna Hogg make that movie.
Yeah.
Where is that movie? Give it to me.
Yeah.
Like,
please.
yeah.
Whoever is financing these films, give her all the money to make a musical.
Yeah.
Please.
Oh man. So good, so good.
Well, this is the part of the show where Brandon and I guessed what the other person rated it on Letterboxd. Now, because I did watch this before I knew, my rating is up.
Yeah, I did see your rating.
But has it changed?
That's a good question. I feel like probably. It probably did. I bet you it's 5 out of 5 now.
Yeah, I think you're going to go for 5 as well. It is. I mean, for me, it's 5 out of 5. I'm going to just say it right now.
I think, I think it is 5 out of 5, honestly.
Yeah.
When I watched it yesterday, I think it was 4.
Yeah.
But after watching it again today and talking about it, it is incredible, dude.
This is it, yeah. The second, because I rated it 4.5 the first time, and then when I went and rewatched it for this, there was so much in there that I was like picking out, and just, it was such a rewarding rewatch that I was like, I need to go back and watch it again.
Yeah.
And to me, if I finish a film and immediately feel like I need to watch, press play again, it's a 5-star film.
Yeah.
Which I think makes this a perfect trilogy in my books. I think all 3 have been 5 stars for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're so good.
Yeah. So. Absolutely incredible. If anybody knows where I can get Joanna Hogg's 30-page scaffolding for these films, tell me. I want to read. I want to know what she had on paper compared to what the final film was, because it's so interesting to me, her process. Yeah. My ideal day would be to go to a country manor like this with Joanna Hogg and just watch her favourite films. A Joanna Hogg Film Festival. Yeah, that's right. Go the whole hog. That's what you could call it. Oh, man. What are we going to be watching next week, Brandon? Okay, so next week, we're going to be watching a film that I have needed to watch for over 10 years. Wow. A friend of mine told me to watch. A friend that I grew that I've known since I was a kid, that I made movies with when I was a kid. Ben, if you're out there, I'm talking about you. What's up, told me to watch this movie 10 years ago, and I haven't. And then when I started working at Alamo Draft House, my trainer asked me if I'd ever seen this film. I was like, no, but my friend told me to watch it 10 years ago. And then every time I saw him after that, he's like, have you watched it yet? And I was like, no, I will. So I kept feeling bad about it. But we're finally going to watch it for Film Church Radio, and the movie is The Holy Mountain from 1973, directed by Alejandro Jodorowsky. Awesome. I'm glad you're hosting next week. I'll look up how to pronounce his name before next week. Perfect. Cool. Never heard of it. Looking forward to seeing it. That poster on Letterboxd is quite something. So yeah, sweet. I think it's going to be an interesting watch. Yeah.
looking forward to it. That'll be next week, so you can go ahead and watch along with us. Tune in next week and see what we thought about it. If you want to send us any thoughts on the film prior to us putting it out there, please do. We'd love to hear what you think and maybe include it in the show at some point, some listener communion. But yeah, up until that point, if you want to do that, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Film Church Radio, also up on YouTube and TikTok, of course. And you can follow us individually on Letterboxd. Brandon is at Selmanscope, and I am at WalkerLewis3007. And you can keep up with what we've been watching in real time. We're watching a lot of movies, not all of them make it onto the show, unfortunately. So you can go back and see if we watched your favourites and what we rated it. Like I said at the top, we also have all our back episodes streaming on all good podcast platforms, mainly Spotify. So please do go and check it out and give us a follow, give us a like, take part in polls, all that good stuff. We'd much rather you do that than anything else. I mean, thank you so much everyone for being here, and we hope to see you next Sunday for more Film Church. But until then, Brandon, the only thing left to say is, I feel so bad.
For what, my darling?
To bring you back to a place where you have such sad memories about. I'm really sorry.
I wanted to come. I'm so grateful to you for bringing me. This is such a lovely thing for us to be here together.
Amen.
Amen.
See you next Sunday. Bye-bye.